Hello, people. Okay, so I'm live now. If you are anywhere in the world, just write a comment. Let me know you're online. I'm actually a few minutes earlier than I had scheduled, so I'm reading the newspaper. I'm just going to keep reading until I get a response, basically. Um, yeah, so I want to use this tool to basically give people an opportunity, subscribers an opportunity to ask me questions, give me feedback. Um, what I might also do is actually raise some topics for people to think about, maybe share their thoughts on, and if you write a comment, I will kind of highlight that, maybe reflect on it. Um, I've just been reading a review in the I newspaper about the new ITV dramatisation Des, which refers to the British serial killer Dennis Nilsen. He was a necrophile who operated in I hate to use that term operated, but it was active, let's say, in London from 1978 to 1983, also known as the Muswell Hill murderer. At the time, he was considered one of Britain's most prolific serial killers, with at least 12 victims. Um, the production has been criticised by some family members as being exploitative, but I've only watched the second episode. I haven't watched the first. I thought it was quite good, powerful acting. ITV's actually done a series of these sort of productions, but I will say that I don't think it was insensitive because it doesn't detail the crimes in gory detail. It's more about the psychosis of Nilsson and the quest to prosecute him. Um, Played by David Tennant of Doctor Who fame, very powerful performance. I thought, that the resemblance was absolutely uncanny. That's been widely commented on. ITV, like I said, have done some other sort of productions. I see one person's online, so don't be shy. Feel free to say something. Yeah, ITV's done adaptations of cases involving the Moors murderers, Harold Shipman, um, and John George Haig, the so-called acid bath murderer. So some of Britain's most notorious cases they've covered in dramatizations. Okay, what I'm going to do is just keep reading the newspaper until people kind of log in and say something. So the ball's in your court, guys and girls. Please say something. Maybe if you want to comment on one of my videos, or I'm just going to let this roll, basically. My sleeping pattern's all over the place, so yeah. In the newspaper, got a cup of Guatemalan coffee. Um, do feel free to say something. If you're online. Because my understanding was I would do this if there's interaction. Sort of defeats the purpose if there's no interaction from subscribers. So please do feel free to ask questions. I might occasionally make comment as I'm recording this. 80 years now since the Battle of Britain in 1940. Time's moving on, so there's only a handful of those brave people still left. Um, and as part of that, 80 years since the Blitz. One thing about World War II history people need to understand is the Blitz sometimes gets interchangeably linked with the V2 air raids. Actually, the other air raids came later in the war. The Blitz is specifically the series of air raids from September 1940 to, I believe, May 1941. The east end of London saw a particularly heavy bombing raid in May 1941 with over 1,500 killed in one night. But of course, many other cities were hard hit, particularly port cities like Liverpool, Portsmouth, Hull, Belfast. Coventry, of course, was famously hit, but so were other cities. I think outside London, the most deaths were in Liverpool and then Birmingham. Um, but Manchester was also hard hit. Sheffield was hard hit. Bristol was very hard hit. Belfast, like I say, Particularly port cities tended to be targeted for obvious reasons. Um, so I think the civilian war in World War Two was much heavier than in World War One, although the overall British casualties of World War One were about double World War Two. We're talking around 780,000 UK dead in the First World War compared to around 390 to 450,000 in the Second World War, depending on how you look at it. Put things in context of COVID, though, we've now had 41,600 deaths. About 43,000 people died in the Blitz, so we're now on a similar toll to the Blitz. And that's only the official figures. The true figures could be a lot higher. So I'm just looking out for the comments. Only one person online at the moment. Um, I will engage as soon as people do. Feel free to say anything, to ask me any questions, anything at all. I imagine it's almost 4 in the morning here in the UK. So the last time two of my subscribers from South Africa and Norway were online, um, I imagine most of my UK subscribers will be okay. We've got response. Declan Marsh, morning Nathan. Good morning, Declan. Um, so two people online now. Remember, any questions, feel free to ask. I want to keep the flow of this going, so it's very important that people engage. Declan, you've told me before, but where are you? Are you based in the UK or where are you? Like I said, I'd really like the flow of this to keep going, so it's very important that we engage. Hope it doesn't seem rude. I'm kind of reading my newspaper as I'm looking at this, but I do want a sort of engagement to keep the flow moving. So remember, people, any questions you want to ask, want to say anything, give me any feedback, anything at all, anything at all. Did anyone else watch that Dennis Nelson dramatization? I spoke a bit about it earlier in the video, so I don't know if anyone else watched it on ITV. Des, which I think was the way Nelson referred to himself. I'm in Norwich. Okay, just getting ready for work, but can keep tuned in while walking to work. Work, goodness, buddy, that's pretty early. What do you do? Are you are you a delivery guy? What 4 in the morning? That's so Norwich. That's a part of the country I've never been to, East Anglia. But Brent's lived in Essex for a while. I don't know if that crosses East Anglia, but I would like to see Norwich. I like the history and it's of course a historic city. But I've never been to Norfolk or Suffolk. I've been to Cambridge, which I guess is classed as East Anglia. So, what do you do, Declan? What's your job? If you don't mind me asking, you don't have to say, of course. But I'm just wondering. It's pretty early to be getting ready for work. Maybe if you're walking along, it's difficult to type, so no worries. Home delivery picker at Morrison's. Okay, I thought it might have been something like that. Quite busy. I imagine with COVID, you guys have been really working around the clock. Um, I did apply actually for a job as a shelf stacker in Tesco's, but I think I needed to notch up more experience because I think employers tend to look at your CV. So I'm working in a charity shop these days, um, trying to get till experience. My impression of Norfolk, it's very flat. Would that be accurate? The Norfolk Broads, it's very flat countryside. The Norfolk Fens. Um, I understand it's good cycling country. I have cycled a bit in my life, but my bike at the moment's got a flat tire. So, but my impression is it's a big county, Norfolk, by area. I think it's like sixth or seventh in England by size. Um, So a lot of cycling country around there. Anyone else online? I see the little people symbol has two people online. So anyone else, feel free to engage if you want to ask me anything. Really, I just want the flow of this to keep going. So do feel free to ask anything. I need to slow down my newspaper intake. I mean, I've been collecting newspapers for let's see, 13 years. Probably the biggest private collection in Sunderland. It's definitely busy in Morrison's, a lot of orders. Yeah, there's a lot of lovely villages, countryside, some beaches. Yeah, big coastline as well in Norfolk. I used to know a girl in my local art gallery, had a big crush on her actually. She was from Cromer, although she'd been in the northeast for a while. Um, but I must admit, it's a part of the country that I'm not overly familiar with. I would definitely like to visit sometime. Norwich, of course, Ipswich, going into Suffolk, and I don't know if there's much history in Kings Lynn. I think it's the second town of Norfolk, so I don't know if there's much in the way of history up there. See, when I visit a place, I always like to know the culture and the history of a place. A lot of people aren't really bothered, but for me, it then to the just gives a feel about it. You know, if you're walking around streets and you know the history of a certain place, and just take it in. I find that very interesting. So third person's logged in. Remember, guys and girls, feel free to say hello. If any women watching, because I find most of my subscribers are guys. I don't know why, but seems to be the trajectory. So any female subscribers, just feel free to say hello. Like I said, I really don't know how I'm going to go ahead with these live streams. I really like the concept. And very easy to upload. I mean, they upload immediately pretty much. So I like the concept. Um, and I would definitely like to engage in it further. But very much depends on interaction. I mean, the whole reason I'm doing these live feeds is to engage with my community because I don't always manage to get back to comments. So I think this is a more practical way to do that. I'll still continue uploading regular videos, but I think this is a good way to engage with people. I won't do generic topics on this other than maybe just bringing them up occasionally because I find the live feed only gets views as they're being viewed. Um, at some point, just as a sort of to put it out there, at some point I'm going to really review my channel and look at everything around there. I mean, everything around the channel, what I can do to improve. I think we're going to have to skim down some videos, maybe even delete some videos. But that happens, I'll do an analysis at the time. I live near the city too, and it's pretty quiet and calm for a city. There's quite a few shops, cafes, and restaurants and churches. Big cathedral as well in Norwich, I believe. Um, I think it's one of the biggest cathedrals in England, isn't it? And unless I'm mistaken, Norwich is famous for its. No, maybe I'm getting mixed up with Northampton. I was going to say famous for bootmaking and shoemaking. I think that's Northampton, which is another city I'm not overly familiar with. I think Norwich is fair to say it's the regional capital of East Anglia, so quite an important city. I live up in Sunderland in the northeast, so if anyone would like to ask any questions about Sunderland, Logano, what's up? Hey Logano, welcome to the live stream. Remember, people, feel free to ask any questions. I was just saying, I was talking to Declan Marsh about Norwich and East Anglia. If anyone wants to ask any questions about Sunderland, that's where I live, up in the northeast, so feel free to ask questions. Um, Reading a piece here in the Eye about the First Lady, Melania Trump. I mean, honestly, guys, I don't really have any topics planned, and I intend this as a sort of live feed. Okay, Logano, from Milwaukee suburbs. Okay. Um, so Milwaukee, Wisconsin, that's beer country, isn't it? I think Wisconsin's quite famous for its beers in the States. And I think you're on the coastline of Lake Superior, is that right? Or I know it's one of the Great Lakes, but I can't remember which one. My city is medium-sized UK city. It's Lake Michigan, that's it. Must be great views over there. One thing I know about Lake Michigan is I think it's called the Mackinac Hotel. It was made famous in a film called Somewhere in Time, which is one of my favorite films, starring Christopher Reeve and Jane Seymour. Beautiful film, romantic film. Declan Marsh, I did hear Sunderland is less prosperous than Norwich. Well, I've not been to Norwich, but there's no getting away from it. Sunderland is not a wealthy city. What I find in Sunderland is we tend to sort of take one step forward and two steps back. So, for example, occasionally we'll have something good happen. 2 years ago, we had Sunderland Tall Ships event. I thought that was a wonderful event. I enjoyed it. We had tall ships from all over the world. Sunderland's a city with a proud history. We were once the world's biggest shipbuilding town, but in the 1980s, with factory policies, the shipyards and the mines closed. But still, the legacy of that can still be seen. However, we do have Britain's largest car plant, Nissan. Um, we have the National Glass Centre. We have a very good civic museum. We are close to the Penshaw Monument, which is a Victorian folly. Um, but there's no escaping it. Sunderland is not a wealthy city. There is quite a lot of deprivation here. Um, Sunderland's one of those places that tend to be at the wrong end of jokes. You know, it's kind of got the reputation of places like, I guess, Cumbernauld in Scotland, um, Oldham, Blackpool, just off the top of my head here, Milton Keynes. It's just one of those places that kind of people don't think is particularly attractive. Actually, there's some nice things in Sunderland. We have a beach. We're one of the few UK cities that actually have a beach. There's many towns that have beaches, but we're one of the few UK cities to have a beach. And in normal circumstances, notwithstanding COVID, we have something called Sunderland Air Show, which is Europe's largest air show. And we also have every December the 26th, the Boxing Day dip is basically people dress up for charity and go into the sea. So, although I wasn't born in Sunderland, I was born in Belfast. I'm pretty much an adopted Mackem, so to speak. I mean, I've been here for 18 years, 19 years. No, I've been in Sunderland for 20 years. I've been in this area for 18 years. But, I won't lie, there is quite a few boarded up shops. We have too many betting shops, which is a bit depressing. Um, the politics of Sunderland, this has long been a Labour city, but I'd vote heavily for Brexit. I think only time will tell what that will be like for the city. Okay, Logano, my dad always told me if I go to Europe, go to England because everything is in English, even though our ancestors are Finnish. Cool. Well, that's true. Obviously, we're an English-speaking country. This is where English originated. But with the UK, I would caution that there is a lot of dialects in this country. For a small country, we have a lot of pronounced dialects. So, most people don't speak the Queen's English or Reti pronunciation, which is the dialect associated with Standard English. I'm an English teacher by background, so I speak Standard English, but a lot of people do use dialects in the UK. Finnish. I remember a Finnish guy at university challenged me about a drinking contest. I've never been to Finland. Some beautiful women from that part of the world, I have to say, in my university. Declan Marsh. I was going to ask a political question, but some of it's related to Brexit, as it's a subject that gets my anxiety going. Well, I can certainly empathise with that. I should say I don't make videos about Brexit precisely because there's so many angles around it. And in the UK, I'll say this for my international viewers. So Logan, for example, and other international viewers. In the UK, every country has a particularly taboo issue. So, for example, in the States, it is guns and race. I would say they're the two particularly flashpoint subjects. In in totalitarian states, it tends to be about the government. Like, don't criticize the government. I would say, apparently, some pollster has found that there's more division between uh, how people approach coronavirus than there is on Brexit. I find that hard to believe. I still think there's far more division over Brexit. I voted Remain, but I respect those who voted. I mean, I respect the rationale of those who voted Leave, and I would like nothing more than the dust to settle. However, I'll say this cautiously. I do think that some Brexiteers are a little bit stubborn in not wanting to accept that maybe everything isn't going to be the picnic that they made it out to be. I mean, at the time, it was all Project Fear, Project Fear, Project Fear, but things are not a picnic right now. We have strained relations with our closest neighbours, and I just hope that they would have the humility to, if things do go south, to admit that they might just have got it wrong. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying I want to reverse a result or anything like that, but Declan, what was your question? You mentioned you wanted to ask something about Brexit. I mean, I voted Remain, but I don't think I'm particularly partisan on this. I genuinely understand both sides, so don't feel shy. Feel free to ask what you wanted to ask because I think it's important that we have dialogue on these things. I mean, we're an open society. We shouldn't have. Yeah, we could be facing a no deal at the end of the transition period. Do you think it will be as bad as many experts are saying? Like food and medicine shortages and prices are going up. Honestly, I don't know. Um, I've kind of taken this approach of I get a bit annoyed at some Brexiteers just dismiss everything. Like they just say, oh, it's Project Fear, everything will be fine. I think they're being a bit stubborn and a bit in denial. Things are far from fine right now. I guess what annoys me a bit is we left in January, yet Brexiteers still want to blame everything on the EU. Um, Naturally, the EU is going to decide that to defend their side of the agreement. I'm going to sound really ignorant here. I haven't looked at detail about what supposedly we've broken international law on the trade deal. Um, I'm going to need to look, hands up. I need to look more into that. I don't know what the details of that is. I don't like the idea of a no deal Brexit, not at all, or a no deal at the end of the transition period. I really don't like it. But honestly, I think what would be worse is prolonged divisions in this country. This is something that's driven families apart. It's something that's driven neighbours apart. It's toxic. It really is. And I will just say this if there is food shortages, if there's really serious problems, I just hope that Brexiteers have the humility to admit that they might have got it wrong. And they don't blame Remain voters, Remain politicians, or the EU. They'll need to accept humility. Having said that, I also think some Remainers can be overly pessimistic. I still believe in this country. I still think we're a great country. Um, I think sometimes there is, I think our international reputation is being damaged. I hate to say that, but I think it is. I think we're sort of being seen as, I don't want to say that like little Englanders because I don't think that's the right narrative. However, I do think certainly our EU partners are going to be looking at us as being just dogmatic for the sake of it, putting up barriers for the sake of it. I'm from Northern Ireland originally. Anything that would lead to a return of the Troubles is obviously would be troubling. I don't think that's going to necessarily happen because I think minds have changed in Ulster in the last 30 years, 20 years. Um, Shortage of food, I don't know. I hope not. I think certain things may sort of have a bit of a hiatus. But let's not forget, this is a country that, 80 years ago went through the Blitz, and we went through very difficult periods in the 70s, and I think we'll get through it. I think we'll get through it. Logan O, you're asking if I like Boris Johnson so far. I'll come back to that if you don't mind. Just to finish on Declan's question, um, I hope there isn't big problems with food and medicine. I mean, this is not a time to be playing politics, and that's what Brexiteers need to understand. We're in the middle of a pandemic. We really, really need to be having good relations with our closest neighbours. Our closest neighbours are Ireland, Germany, France, the Netherlands. We need good relations with those countries. I know we've done a big trade deal with Japan. I really welcome that. I hope it's a good thing. I need to look at the details, but it makes sense that we have good relations with Japan. They're an island nation with a former imperial history. They're a monarchy. We have a lot in common, actually. It's a democracy. It's a great power. I think we should have close trade and diplomacy with Japan. Okay, so I like Boris Johnson so far. Well, I didn't vote for his party. I'm not conservative. In the UK, and you're coming from the States, obviously, Boris Johnson is a very larger than life character. However, it's not entirely accurate to say he's Britain's Trump. He's not quite that controversial and polarizing. However, he has got a long history of making outlandish statements. In the UK, he was editor, or rather, he worked on the Daily Telegraph newspaper and on the Spectator. I think he was editor of the Spectator, actually. And during his tenure, he came out with some controversial editorials, very politically incorrect. As prime ministers go, Johnson is quite popular, uh, but he is quite. He can be a controversial figure. There's no getting around that. However, he has certain mannerisms that other politicians just don't seem to get around. He's quite he's well, not quite. He's a very charismatic figure. I mean, he's one of the few prime ministers people know by a first name basis, like Boris this, Boris that, not Mr. Johnson. Um, do I like him? I don't know. I certainly think that in 2019 he was better than the alternative, which was Jeremy Corbyn. But I don't know. I always think with prime ministers, you can't judge until their tenure is over. Same is true of presidents and other leaders. Um, got my patriotic mug here. I honestly think with Boris Johnson, I do think he is prone to populism, which isn't always a good thing. However, I don't think people should underestimate him. Let me just say that. And I do think it's refreshing in some areas he's not politically correct. I think it's refreshing, for example, that he's willing to confront the burqa issue. I think that got taken out of context. But there's things I don't like about Boris Johnson. For example, however, I think his tenure as Mayor of London was overall quite successful. So honestly, I think it's too early to judge Johnson. I think when he was on his deathbed, literally earlier this year, a lot of people genuinely had sympathy with him. And I do think he's a very well known figure. Even before he was Prime Minister, he was a celebrity. Okay, Declan Marsh. I heard Boris Johnson is pulling out of the human rights thing. Don't understand completely. Yeah, definitely. I got disabled friends who rely on epilepsy meds and GA. I guess you mean government assistance. Well, like I say, I'm not a Tory voter, and I have a big problem with the way the Conservatives have approached disabled claimants in the past. Not so much Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak, more in the Cameron May era. I think it was disgraceful the way they hounded disabled claimants, and I think that's a big cloud over their legacy. They told people who were genuinely sick that they were fit to work. The left wing side of me would be particularly critical of that. I don't know the details. I assume that's European Court of Human Rights. Um, I I don't know about this. I don't think Britain is in any rush to become a sort of totalitarian state. I think there is enough of a liberal principle in this country and enough of a respect for basic human rights. I think if the government were to really trample human rights, I do think the wider public would recognise that I do. Um, I don't think this is a country that's easily taken to kind of accepting totalitarianism. That doesn't mean we can be complacent. There are areas around freedom of speech that I think we need to be very careful about. For example, in Scotland, they're trying to rush, the SNP government's trying to rush hate crime legislation, or put through hate crime legislation, which could protect religion. Now, I have a big problem with that because it could conflate legitimate criticism of Islamic extremism with anti-Muslim bigotry, and these things shouldn't be conflated. Family members who rely on different meds. Well, my younger sister is chronically ill. She has all sorts of problems, so this is something that's definitely of concern to her. Uh, I think the government needs to approach that very sensitively and make sure that people have, that they have what they need. But these things are not straightforward. Oh, the GA is a spelling error. I'm also glad we don't have Jeremy Kyle on TV anymore. Um, he partly influenced it. I know you hate both Jeremy Kyle and Gordon Ramsay. Yeah, I'm not a fan of either character. That's true. I'm very pleased that we've seen the end of Jeremy Kyle, at least the show. Unfortunately, ITV can be quite shallow, and they might bring him back in another capacity, which isn't ideal. I feel he's being rewarded for being a bit of a. I think I'll just say this. I think Jeremy Kyle's the card. He refused to show his face to a parliamentary committee scrutinising reality TV. Yet this is a man who had no problem exploiting people for cheap and, in my view, pretty sick entertainment. For outside viewers, Logan O, I don't know if you've heard of Jeremy Kyle. I know there was, I know it went over to the States as well, but basically it was like Jerry Springer, but worse because it was real. And it ended last year after 14 years when a guest committed suicide. A despicable show, and it depressed me that people seem to find something in it. Yeah, exactly. Like Maury Povich, he's another creep in my opinion. I'm not a fan of reality TV. I think that most of it is cynical rubbish. Occasionally, you get someone who maybe is more compassionate about the guests, but I must admit, I'm pretty cynical. I find that it's all about getting clickbait views and just exploiting troubled people. In the case of Jeremy Kyle, I think the people that appeared in that show, they needed either professional help, or in the case of criminals, they needed sentencing. They needed to face justice. This is the irony about Jeremy Kyle. He always was talking tough on crime and so on, but he gave them money to appear on his show. So he'd get a wife beater to appear on a show, and he'd rile up the crowd to boo the person, but he'd be giving them money to appear. So it was incredibly hypocritical. And you're right, Declan. He absolutely fueled negative um, public reactions. So, for example, he would take someone who was abusing the welfare system, and he would portray that as being the whole picture. That all these lazy dole scroungers, it was despicable. I've no doubt some of his guests were pretty despicable people, but what was I found loathsome about Jeremy Kyle was he would stand up there, play judge, jury, and executioner like he had no faults, and he would rile up his crowd to jeer people down, to feel good about themselves. In the case of Gordon Ramsay, obviously a slightly different show. What I dislike about Gordon Ramsay is the fact that people place success on his attitude. I mean, let's face it, people watch Gordon Ramsay not because they want to get a recipe for, how to prepare salmon in the best way. They watch Gordon Ramsay because they want to see him yell in someone's face. So to me, it's very cynical, and it sends out the message that if you're obnoxious and you're basically a bully, that's the key to success. I think it's a very negative message, and to be quite honest, it depresses me that a lot of people support them. If I went on to a Gordon Ramsay video, I would be a lot of people would tell me to shut up. Oh, you can't criticize Gordon. But the thing is, my issue has never been his standards as a chef. I'm sure he's a world class chef. I'm sure his food is great, but that's not the issue to me. Yeah, Simon Cowell, exactly. There's a lot of examples of this. In the case of Britain's Got Talent, I never watched those shows. Britain's Got Talent. I know there's America's Got Talent. It's the equivalent over there. Again, they're just cynical because what they do is if it was just about entertainment, that would be great. But what they do is they allow people who really aren't great, they allow them through the stages just so people can laugh at them. I honestly think these shows promote bullying. I really do. Um, I remember one guy, it was on the American version. He was a musician and he was trying to string up his guitar and he was having some technical problems and people immediately started jeering him. And I'm thinking, you absolute, what the hell? Like, give the guy a chance. And it turned out he was actually rather good, but they wouldn't even give the guy a chance just because there was some sound issues. It's just it's very cruel, actually. I do not like cruel TV. Gordon has mellowed in recent years, I think. It's Americans and drama. He doesn't seem to yell at people like that on UK shows. I can't say, to be honest. I don't watch his shows, so I don't know. But I'll take your word for it. What the videos I made where I was very critical of him, it was based on the shows that I had seen. So I stand by that because that was, something he put out there. Some people have said that Gordon Ramsay sort of does it to just for ratings, but I don't think that's anything to shout about. Like, oh, it's not. He doesn't really, he's not really sincere. He's not genuinely angry. He's just doing it for ratings. But surely that's nothing to shout about, even if it is kind of put on a bit for the cameras. The fact is, people think that is the way to get success. The counter I would make is you get other celebrity chefs like Dilla Lawson, Jamie Oliver, etc. They're successful and they don't yell in people's faces. And the other thing about Gordon Ramsay, I don't think it's constructive criticism because he doesn't say, look, you need to be, you've sauteed that the wrong way or whatever it might be. He will get very, very personal. I remember he said to one young chef, young man, when I was your age, I wasn't a loser like you, or something to that extent. And he really can be quite personal. And I just think there's no need for it. And I think, yeah, I just think it's very cynical. I don't think it's helpful. I do not like cruel TV, period. I mean, I would contrast TV over the last 20 years to television in the 90s. In the 1990s, there was a lot of shows around, like The Generation Game, Gladiators. I'm old enough to remember this stuff. Strange but true. I'm thinking here of UK TV. Um, and most of it was harmless. There was a bit of banter here and there, but it was rarely genuinely cruel. Even those TV shows where you had kids gunning their parents and stuff, it was all the parents were always in on it. It was never. I think reality TV is a relatively new phenomenon and not a good one for the most part. I'm not going to say it's all bad. Occasionally, there's certain reality TV I will watch, find interesting, but it's not all bad. But I do think that there's been too much of a focus by big studios like ITV to try and get clickbait by getting confrontation. I mean, with Jeremy Kyle, it's about trying to stir up people's emotions. He would always say, "We're not here to judge." Well, Jeremy, of course you were. Jeremy Kyle wanted confrontation. There was one episode where he told a man that he would be reconciled with his wife. What happens? They bring out her new lover, and it ended up in an assault. The spurned husband headbutted the other guy. This was an assault on national TV. To me, it's twisted because Kyle deliberately stirred up that man's emotions, and I'm not justifying it, but the judge at the time said, in his opinion, Kyle should have been in the dock. I agree with that. So, good riddance to Jeremy Kyle. Hope they learn the lesson and don't try to do anything similar. So, guys, I'm going to bring this up to about 50 minutes. Um, did anyone watch that show about Dennis Nelson on ITV? I mentioned that at the start of the video. Let me know if you've seen that. For anyone who doesn't know, Dennis Nelson was a notorious British serial killer, so it was a dramatization. I think with creators of shows like that, they always need to temper the line between what is educational, what is just historic record versus what's exploitative and in bad taste. but from what I saw, it was handled well. Have you seen channels like Simon Paul Evans? I'm not familiar with Simon Paul Evans. Pat Condell, yes. Um, I haven't seen Condell for a long time. I always knew he was very right wing. I know Condell from his videos on Islam. I don't know what he would say on Universal Credit, but I can imagine he'd come out with very Daily Mail esque type opinions on that, or not. I don't know. I haven't watched his videos of late. I used to watch some of the ones on Islam. I think a lot of what he says is valid, at least at that time. You know, he was pretty politically incorrect. However, he did raise very valid issues about Islamic extremism and religious extremism. I think my issue with Condell was he was a bit arrogant and self-righteous. I suppose you could say on some level, all creators, myself included, have a certain degree of vanity. But I found with Condell, there was a time I stopped watching his videos, and I think it's because he just got a bit. I just find him a bit pompous at times. However, some of his videos did raise important issues. But I must admit, I haven't. I might actually Google him after this or type him in and see if he's still active. Simon Paul Evans. What sort of subjects does he cover, Declan? Does he cover similar things? And Logan O, tell me about Milwaukee. Um, has it been affected by the protests this year? I know obviously Minneapolis has been in the news and Kenosha, of course. Have you seen any trouble there in Milwaukee? Um, yeah, give me some feedback, people. Anything. It's quite right. I assume you mean all right. Like, that's good to know. Certainly in some cities, it seems the culture wars are really spilling over. Portland, it looks like a really bad situation out there. I have a take on this, and it also applies to UK protests. Whether right wing or left wing, conservative or liberal, I think that um, people want to express their opinions. People have strong views on these things, but I don't see what comes from confrontation. It's just a recipe for trouble. People have a right to free speech, and in the States, of course, it's in the First Amendment. But you know, I don't see what yelling at each other is going to do. And I say that about the UK as well. We had real trouble in London earlier this year between right wing protesters and Black Lives Matter. Um, People get angry, but I don't think, when you get protests and counter protests, sometimes it's about numbers. It's just about an ego thing. Oh, who gets the most numbers? Um, he's covered a lot of things like political correctness, Brexit. He's right wing and does swear a lot. I assume you mean Simon Paul Evans. Simon Paul Evans, he isn't a young guy, is he? With a kind of beard, stubble. I know there was no, I'm thinking of Paul Joseph something. It was on the InfoWars channel, and that immediately put me off the guy because I've no time for InfoWars. Um, I tend to avoid Brexit, to be honest. That's why I never make videos about it, just because it's so polarizing and so toxic. And quite frankly, I don't feel qualified to discuss all the issues in depth because I am deliberately avoiding it. I mean, I know the basics, of course, but okay. We've got a new subscriber here. Okay. Skylar Powell. I'm facing 20 years soon because a 15-year-old girl lied about her age. I just want to kill myself. Can you give me a reason to live? Okay. Logan, oh, I found your vids around the time you were in China. Glad you got out of there before pandemic. I'll come back to that, but I think I need to address this one. Skylar. Firstly, Skylar, I assume this is a serious message. That this isn't. I take it is. Okay. Well, look, I'm not a psychiatrist, but I'll give you some feedback on this. And other guys, maybe you want to intercept here as well. Um, So, Skylar, you've been accused of sleeping with this 15-year-old girl. Well, I assume you have lawyers. If she's lied about her age, I assume that's a mitigating factor. Are you in the United States? Which state are you in? I should stress I'm not a legal expert here, but don't kill yourself. That's Virginia. Okay. Well, I don't know Virginian law, but don't kill yourself. That's because you don't know what the process of this trial is going to do. If you want to, you can tell us the details of this, but don't give names because that would be getting into legal territory, and I don't want to. I'm not qualified to sort of get there. Don't give names out, but um, yeah, Declan, Logan, maybe you guys want to come in here as well. So I assume you thought this girl was older, right? Yeah, I'd agree with Logan. That's probably a practical thing. Um, but there's due process. Um, if this girl has lied, if she told you that she was older than she was, um, then stress that to your lawyers because it may not be as bad as you think. Okay, you met at a gas station. She said she worked there. We changed numbers. She doesn't even work there. Yeah, that's a difficult situation. I have to be honest, I've not been in that situation, so maybe not the most qualified person to help, but don't kill yourself. Please don't do anything drastic because you may find may go in a better way than you think. Whether the court appoints lawyers or whether I don't know what the situation is with lawyers. Do you have lawyers? Do you have a lawyer? So was this someone that you knew or was this a stranger? Um, she told you she was 19, so in the States that's an adult. So what I would say about the situation like this is every man's worst nightmare. Um, okay, you say that she's lied to you, so I would tell your legal defense that really stress that point because I'm not an expert on Virginia law, but certainly in the UK, I think that could be a mitigating factor, and it would certainly have an impact on your sentence if you even get a sentence. I imagine you're going to be very anxious right now. But look, I'm not a lawyer and I'm not an expert on Virginia law. All I can say is I imagine you're going to be pretty down right now, but don't kill yourself. That's just crazy because you don't know what the outcome of this trial is going to be. Um, and you're only 23, you're a young guy. Really, don't do anything drastic. If you were my age, I think it would be more serious. Like if you were 35, um, you're a young guy. I imagine you're going to be feeling alone right now, anxious, but please, please don't do anything reckless. Just try and take a breath. Just see how this plays out. This is going to be a big challenge, but what's the situation? Do you have a lawyer? Do you have a lawyer? What's going on with your lawyers? Right. So what's your lawyer said? And like Declan says, he's absolutely right. If this girl's lied, at some point that's going to be revealed because liars always get found out. So you've got that on your side. I mean, you've got the truth on your side. That's the thing. It's not like you knew she was 15 and you broke the law. Right, he told you to give it time and he'll read over my text messages and construct it in a way that we could present them in the most assertive way possible. So do you think, does he think that these text messages show that you, I mean, I assume you checked her age. You asked what age she was, or did she just tell you? Yeah, that's a difficult thing. I mean, obviously the father is going to be protective of his daughter. He's going to be biased. I don't think you could count on that. But I think the most important thing is that truth prevails. If this girl lied, then you went into, I assume you had sex with her. Uh, you went in there with an honest interpretation that she was 19. Um, do you have any record of that, asking her age, like in a text or anything like that? Because hold on to that, for goodness sake. Don't delete that message. Hold on to it. Um, and if she said to work at a gas station, I don't know what age you need to be in the States to work at a gas station, but and considering college, yeah, it sounds like you're in every man's worst nightmare there, buddy. But please don't kill yourself. Got the truth on your side. Um, I'm not a legal expert. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm just another guy. Um, this is every man's worst nightmare. But just follow your lawyer's advice. These are people who are trained to do this. Um, yeah. Nathan, could you try to do your live videos at a time like 7 p.m. As an example, you will get more tune in. Well, yeah, I'll try my best. That's a good idea. Because it's 7 p.m. would be good for UK viewers. But remember, I have subscribers all over the world, but certainly I'll try to do that. And Skylar, really, buddy, we're just other guys here. We don't know what the outcome of this is going to be, and I don't want to get your hopes up. But at the same time, please don't do something drastic like that. I mean, I can totally understand. I'd be feeling the same way, but you don't know what the outcome's going to be. Um, Trust your lawyer. They are trained to do this sort of stuff. I'm sure it's not the first case he's dealt with like this. And if the girl's lying, at some point this is going to be found out. I don't know if she'll have to take a lie detector test or something like that. If she does, then that's going to be exposed, and hopefully the court will see justice. But you'll be okay. It's not going to help you by worrying about it. Really not. You need to just try and have a stable mental state of mind. Just This is a difficult time in your life, but just see what happens. There's no point thinking of the worst scenario before it's even happened. Honestly, that's the way I would approach it. And I'll be thinking of you. Um, by the way, Simon Paul even used to be called Reverend Simon Sideways. He has a black. Is that a real name, Simon Sideways? Um, I prefer your channel over there as you're sensible and back your points up. Well, I certainly try to. I think if you're being opinionated online, you need to be prepared to back it up. For example, if I'm talking about a news item, I will try to include sources. Like I'll put a link to a newspaper article. I'll always quote the journalist. So certainly try to. Maybe I'm not always as meticulous as I should be, but I do try. I'm just going to scroll up, see if I've missed any comments. I must admit, Skylar, that was quite. I wasn't expecting a comment like yours, but thank you for letting us know. It's always good to talk about these things. Um, but please, if you're still watching, don't do anything drastic. And Logan O is right. They need proof you have rights. You do. You've got due process. I mean, they have no proof that you knowingly slept with a girl who's 15. Um, you believe she was 19. So that's the key issue here. Just scrolling up to see if I've missed any. Yeah, I don't think I missed anything. Simon Paul. Okay, I'll check that guy's channel out. Is he British or American from another country? And about the timing of these live feeds, I will try to do it more. I mean, this is the early hours in the UK, so most Brits will be asleep. But like I say, these videos are around the world, so you did get angrier in your 2012 video compared to now. You definitely have mellowed. You got this Skyler. You got this Skyler, and he is British. Okay, so British. You're talking about Paul. What's the guy's name? Simon Paul. Okay, the name somehow rings a bell, but I'm not sure. That's an interesting comment about my 2012 videos. Certainly, some of my older videos I let rip a little bit. Maybe it's true. I was quite bitter at that time about welfare issues and so on. Um, but I still get angry about things, you know. I still have strong views on things, but excessive anger obviously isn't healthy. So I'm trying to, I don't know, not let it dominate. Okay, guys, we'll give another 5 minutes to round up to 1 hour. If anyone else is online, I know it's five people are online, so feel free to say anything. And uh, before I round this up, Skylar, please take what we said on board. Listen to your lawyer. Just hang in there. It's a terrible situation to be in, but the outcome might be better than you think. It really might. And you've got truth on your side. That's the most important thing. Pulling an all night here, I'll probably continue reading my newspaper after this. I might be too late to watch a film, but I actually volunteer in Bernardo's, so I need to go in there tomorrow. Just get a few hours on the till. Simon Paul Evans. Yeah, it's. I think anyone who's been on Universal Credit knows what the situation is. Right now, I've went back onto Universal Credit, and I have to say it's a massive relief. I mean, I don't want to be this to be misinterpreted, but because of coronavirus now, I don't know if it's the same with you, but I'm signing on, and there's pretty much no commitment. It's like you used to do the very soul destroying work search thing. They're not even asking you to do that anymore. So I perhaps that's why my anger on that issue has toned down a great deal, as you know the obligations have greatly reduced. So I don't know how long that's going to last for. I guess it just depends on the job situation and coronavirus situation. But definitely, it's a big weight off my back not to have to always say, oh, on Tuesday I look for these jobs for 2 hours or whatever it might be. I hated that. I always found it very soul destroying. Simon Paul Evans, might check him out. You mentioned he's pretty right wing, so I imagine there'd be. Okay, are there any UK documentaries you recommend? Yeah, there is one actually. It's quite old now. It's from 2005, but it's a great documentary. It's about the London Underground. So, London Underground, the world's oldest transit system. It was opened in 1863. Um, if you go into YouTube, just type in London Underground Ghosts. It's a great documentary. It's very professionally presented. I've always liked it. It talks about a lot of real life cases. Just off the top of my head, one of them is at Bethnal Green Tube Station. It's now 80 years since the Blitz, where Germany bombed London and other British cities. And there was one incident during an air raid when people thought that a bomber got onto the tube, as they sometimes did, and it was a big crush. And around, I think it was over 160 civilians were killed in a crush, mostly women and children. So they say to this day, people get shortages of breath at Bethnal Green Tube Station. Bethnal Green, incidentally, is also famous for the Kray twins, who were notorious British gangsters. But yeah, I strongly recommend that documentary. It should still be online. London Underground Ghosts. Great documentary. As for other documentaries, any British wildlife show by David Attenborough is good. Very professional style. There's lots of documentaries in history. To be honest, I don't know where to start. There's many good ones out there. Um, In terms of YouTube, there's a channel I really like called Bedtime Stories. Some British guys narrate that channel. They always do like an illustration. They always cover the supernatural, the paranormal. It's a very good channel. Strongly recommend it. I don't agree with quite a lot of the things he says, but I just find him a funny guy at times with his rants. Yeah, I might check him out. Simon Paul Evans. Okay, guys, I'm going to round this up 1 hour. Skylar, I hope you'll get back to us if you're still watching this. Just hang in there. You'll be okay. You'll be okay. Um, okay, Declan, Logan, Skylar, thanks for watching, guys. And next live feed, I don't know how I'm going to schedule these. I might just do them spontaneously and see who's online rather than advertise them. So yeah, I'll try and do the next one probably evening UK time. Okay, take care, guys. Skylar, you particularly, you'll be okay. And yeah, have a good day.